What happens when a tired neurologist accidentally walks into the wrong hotel room and ends up stepping into the life of a fearless tour guide who refuses to be ignored? They're total opposites. She lives for freedom. He's chained to structure. But fate and a few unexpected twists keep pulling them together, just when things start to feel right. Her past walks back into town. Now she must choose between comfort and change, between who she was and who she's becoming. Will she follow the map or her heart? If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and like the video. We'd love to know where you're watching from, so drop your location in the comments. Now, let's jump into the story. The morning air in Belle Cove carried the scent of salt and sun. Soft music played from Marin's phone as she stretched her arms above her head and smiled to herself. She loved mornings like this. Bright, peaceful, and full of promise. Pulling the curtains aside, she gazed out the wide window of her small fifth-floor hotel room. Below, tourists were already gathering near the boardwalk, some with coffee cups in hand, others snapping photos of the golden sky melting into the sea. "Another perfect day," Marin whispered. She spun around and reached for her clothes. Her first tour of the day would start in less than an hour. She had a full group signed up and she wanted to make it special. Just as she turned to pick up her shoes, the door creaked open. Marin froze. A man stepped into her room, his face pale and eyes ringed with dark circles. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His messy hair and unbuttoned shirt gave the impression that he didn't care much about how he appeared. Excuse me?" Marin said, grabbing the nearest pillow and clutching it to her chest. "Who are you? What are you doing in my room?" The man blinked at her, confused. "Why is the hotel staff yelling so early?" he mumbled. "Staff? I'm not staff. I live here. This is my room." The man rubbed his temples. "Fine, relax. I must have the wrong door." He turned and walked out as casually as he had entered, saying nothing more. Marin stared at the door, wide-eyed and annoyed. "What a way to start the morning," she muttered. She peeked into the hallway and watched him stroll into the room right next to hers. Unbelievable. After a quick shower and outfit change, Marin headed down to the lobby. She usually took the stairs for her morning exercise, but after the odd start to her day, she decided to take the elevator. Just as the doors began to close, a voice called out, "Wait, hold the elevator." She pressed the button, and the doors opened again. To her surprise, it was him, the stranger from earlier. "You again?" she said flatly. He smirked. "Oh, it's the loud hotel worker." "I'm not a hotel worker. You barged into my room, remember?" "Right. Mistake on my part. Though, you were pretty loud for someone who got scared over nothing." Marin took a deep breath and looked away. "Calm down, Marin," she whispered under her breath. "You can't greet your guests with a frown." When the elevator doors opened, her best friend and fellow guide, Layla, stood waiting. Layla greeted her with a bright smile and a hug. "Good morning, sunshine." "Morning," Marin replied, still trying to shake off the awkward tension. "You won't believe who I just rode the elevator with." Layla leaned in. "The guy next to your room?" "Yes." And he walked in like he owned the place. Layla's eyes widened. "Do you know who he is? Some clueless guest?" "No. He's Ronan Hale, the famous neurologist from New York. He's saved so many lives. I read about him in a medical article a few months ago." "Ronan Hale?" Marin raised an eyebrow. "Never heard of him." "That's because you're more into whales and lighthouses than hospitals," Layla joked. Before Marin could reply, Ronan appeared again in the lobby. Layla rushed over. "Good morning, sir. Could I take a picture with you?" Ronan looked slightly surprised but nodded. "Sure. Marin, quick, take the photo," Layla said. Marin snapped the photo, but Ronan's smirk made her pause. He wasn't exactly rude, but something about his expression rubbed her the wrong way. He's doing that on purpose, she thought. They walked toward the front desk to receive their group assignments. Their supervisor, Mr. Calder, handed them printed lists of guest names. "Thank you," Marin and Layla said together. Layla scanned her list. "Wait, he's not in mine." Marin flipped through her own. "Great, he's in mine." "You lucky." "Girl?" Layla whispered. You get to spend the day with Dr. Ronan Hale. Lucky is not the word I'd use, Marin muttered under her breath. When she finally spotted her group near the fountain, Ronan was already standing with them, hands in his pockets, looking like he didn't belong. Marin took a deep breath and walked over with her practiced smile. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marin Clark, your tour guide. Welcome to Bell Cove, home to sea breezes, quiet beaches, and hidden gems. The group smiled. Cameras came out. Marin collected their phones to take pictures and guided them toward the first stop. As she snapped a few shots, she felt someone behind her. We're starting here? Ronan asked. Yes. It sets the right tone. But the map says we should begin at the west gate. Marin forced a polite tone. Technically, yes, but this spot is perfect for sunrise lighting and guest photos. Some of us expect the official route. Skipping steps might be unsettling. Marin nodded. You're right, we can adjust. He said nothing, but his eyes still held that quiet challenge. All right, everyone, Marin called out. We'll begin at the west gate instead. As the group walked on, Marin whispered to herself, this is going to be a long day. The morning tour had just begun, but Marin could already feel her patience wearing thin. Ronan walked slightly behind the group, his hands tucked into the pockets of his beige jacket. Though he remained silent most of the time, his presence felt loud. Every now and then he would raise an eyebrow, clear his throat, or glance at her with an expression that said he didn't agree with something she had just said. This spot, Marin said as they reached the overlook, was once a secret hideaway for local fishermen. If you look closely, you'll still see the wooden posts where their boats were tied. Ronan's voice broke the silence. Are you sure those posts weren't part of the old Coast Guard station? They look like steel foundations. Marin forced a smile. I've guided dozens of tours here. It's in the town records. The Coast Guard station was 2 miles south. Just checking, Ronan replied, eyes scanning the landscape. The group of tourists didn't seem to notice the tension. They laughed, took pictures, and asked questions about the tide pools and seabirds. But Marin noticed. It was like walking, a tightrope while someone whispered doubt into your ear with every step. After lunch, the group returned to the town center. The tour was scheduled to end by 2, but Ronan lingered near the fountain. He sat on the edge, looking toward the sea. His face remained calm, but his shoulders slumped ever so slightly. Marin took a seat on the opposite side of the fountain, wiping her forehead with a tissue. The sun was strong that afternoon, and the salty wind had begun to dry her throat. You don't like following people, do you? She asked without looking at him. Ronan tilted his head. I don't mind following, I just have questions. You question everything. I'm a doctor, he said simply. I'm used to questioning things. Yeah? Well, I'm used to people trusting me to do my job. Ronan didn't answer. He just stared ahead at the crashing waves. After a long pause, Marin stood up and dusted off her pants. Come with me, she said. Where? Somewhere not on the tour map. Ronan looked unsure but followed her anyway. They walked past the souvenir shops and restaurants, down a narrow path shaded by pine trees and tall wildflowers. The sound of the ocean grew louder with each step. After 10 minutes of walking in silence, they arrived at a secluded cliffside. Marin stepped aside, letting Ronan see the view. Below them, a quiet cove stretched into the distance, untouched by tourist crowds. The water shimmered with shades of blue and green, and a few colorful boats floated near the shore. Birds called overhead, circling in slow, graceful arcs. This is my favorite place, Marin said softly. I never bring groups here. It's too personal. Ronan didn't say anything at first. He just looked. Why show it to me? He asked eventually. Because you don't look like someone who needs a tour. You look like someone who needs a break. He let out a dry laugh. I was forced to come here. By who? My sister. After what happened in the hospital, she practically dragged me out of New York. What happened? Ronan's eyes darkened. We lost a young patient during surgery. It wasn't my fault. I wasn't even in the operating room. But if I had been, maybe things would have been different. Marin didn't speak. She just stood beside him and let the quiet fill the space. I told myself I didn't need rest, he continued. But when I got here, everything felt too loud. Even the silence. That's what grief does, Marin said. It steals the quiet and replaces it with noise only you can hear. He looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time. How do you know that? Because I've lost people too, and I know what it feels like to carry their weight, even when no one asks you to. They stood there together, watching the sea crash against the rocks far below. Thank you for showing me this place, Ronan said finally. I wasn't sure you'd follow. Me neither. She smiled. A real one this time. You hungry? She asked. A little. There's a small cafe nearby. No tourists, just locals. They have great lemon pie. Sounds like the best part of the tour so far. They walked back up the path, side by side. Neither said much, but something had shifted. The air between them felt lighter, less full of friction. Marin didn't know what to expect from Ronan the next day, but for now, she felt something rare. A moment of peace with someone who understood how it felt to lose control. And Ronan, for the first time in weeks, didn't feel the need to run away. The next morning arrived with soft clouds and a cooler breeze. The kind that whispered change was in the air. Marin stood on the beach early, toes sinking into the cool sand as the waves kissed the shore. She needed a few quiet moments before the new tour began, but peace didn't last long. A familiar voice called from behind. Marin? She turned quickly and blinked. Standing a few feet away, holding a small travel bag, was Ellis. Her breath caught. It had been months since they had spoken, and seeing him here in Belle Cove felt like finding a ghost that never left her heart. Ellis? She asked. What are you doing here? He smiled, his eyes the same soft brown she used to stare into. I came to see you. I heard from someone in town that you still work the tours. Marin's heart pounded in her chest. The last time she saw Ellis, he had been boarding a train with no intention of coming back. They had ended things quietly, no screaming, just sadness and silence. You should have called, she said. I was scared you wouldn't want to see me. Marin didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out to the water. So why now? She asked. Because I realized something, Ellis said, stepping closer. Leaving was a mistake. I thought I needed space, a different life. But none of it mattered without you. I've missed you, Marin. Before she could respond, a voice called from the path behind them. Am I interrupting? Marin turned to see Ronan standing there, his expression unreadable. He held a small camera bag and wore a calm but guarded look. Marin's stomach twisted. Ronan, she said quickly, stepping forward. I didn't know you were coming early. I figured we could explore the tide caves before the crowd arrives, he said, his eyes flicking between her and Ellis. I didn't realize you had company. Ellis stepped forward. I'm Ellis, an old friend. Ronan, he replied, offering a short nod. Marin could feel the tension, thick and unspoken, building between them. We were just catching up, she added quickly. Nothing big? Ronan nodded but said nothing more. I should go, Ellis said after a moment. Maybe we'll talk later? Sure, Marin replied. After Ellis walked away, Marin turned to Ronan. He was staring out at the sea, hands in his pockets again. You okay? She asked. Just surprised, he said quietly. He's someone important to you? He was, she admitted. A part of my past? Ronan nodded. Seems like your past still wants to be your present, Marin sighed. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know he was in town. You don't owe me an explanation, Ronan said. But maybe you owe yourself one. They walked in silence for a while, following the cliff path toward the tide caves. The wind picked up, tugging at Marin's hair and jacket. You're not just a tour guide, Ronan said suddenly. Marin looked at him, surprised. What do you mean? You carry a lot, more than you let on. She gave a small laugh. So do you. I used to think being in control made me strong, he said. But now I see. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who know when to let go. They reached the tide caves and the sound of the ocean echoed softly through the rocks. Marin stepped ahead, her boots crunching over the stones. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel, she said. Ellis was part of my story, but he's not where I am now. Ronan looked at her gently. Then don't go back just because it's familiar. Marin met his eyes. For the first time, she saw something in him that wasn't just grief or tiredness. It was hope. Shy, uncertain, but real. They sat on a rock overlooking the sea. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The wind filled the silence with a soft hum. Do you think people can start over? Marin asked. I think people can choose. What comes next? Ronan answered. Starting over doesn't mean erasing the past. It just means not letting it decide everything. Marin smiled. You sound like someone who's been thinking about that a lot. I have, he said, since I met you. Before Marin could respond, her phone buzzed. A message from Layla popped up. Ellis is back at the town square. He's asking around for you. He says he wants a real answer. Marin locked her phone and sighed. You okay? Ronan asked. I will be, she said. But I think I need to face this. He nodded, standing with her. You should. I'll wait. You don't have to. I want to. Marin gave him a grateful look and headed back to town. Her heart felt heavy but also a little clearer. Things were changing. She was changing. And she didn't want to run from that anymore. As she walked toward the square, she knew the past was still part of her, but the present was where her future was beginning to grow. Marin sat quietly on the wooden bench near the town square fountain, the breeze brushing gently across her cheeks. The late afternoon sun dipped low behind the roofs, casting golden light over the small coastal town. Ellis stood in front of her, shifting from foot to foot. So, he said finally, have you thought about what I said? Marin looked up, her fingers lightly clasped in her lap. She had thought about it. Too much, maybe. Her mind had circled around his words, their past, and what the future might look like if she tried again. But no matter how much she looked back, her heart kept pulling her in a different direction. I have, she said gently. And I'm sorry, Ellis. I can't go back. He blinked, as if the words hadn't landed. You mean you don't want to try again? I mean I've changed, and so have you. The person I was with you, she doesn't exist anymore. I've grown into someone else. He looked away, nodding slowly. Is it because of him? Ronan? Marin didn't answer right away. She stood and faced him, her voice calm but clear. Ronan made me see that I've been living in the past. You and I shared something important, but holding on to it would only keep me from moving forward. Ellis looked down at his shoes. I guess I came too late. Not too late, she said softly. Just not at the right time anymore. He gave her a small smile, one filled with more understanding than sadness. Then I hope you're happy, Marin. Truly. Thank you, she replied. And I hope the same for you. They exchanged one last look before Ellis walked away, blending into the crowd of weekend visitors. Marin let out a long breath. It didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like closure. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. Was that difficult? She turned and found Ronan standing near a tree holding 2 cups of iced tea. He offered one to her without a word. You followed me? She asked with a smile. I said I'd wait. They sat side by side on the bench, sipping quietly. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was steady, peaceful. I'm leaving tomorrow, Ronan said. Marin nodded, but her throat tightened. She had known it was coming, but now that the moment was near, it felt different. You have patience to help, she said softly. Yes, but I've also been thinking about something else. Marin turned her head, her eyes searching his. About staying. Her heart jumped. Staying in Bell Cove? Not forever, he said, but maybe long enough to slow down, open a small clinic here and see where this could go. Marin's eyes widened. You're serious? I've never said anything more seriously. I thought I couldn't live without my work, but now I realize I can't do it well if I'm never living at all. She laughed gently, surprised by the warmth in her chest. So, this is your way of asking me to keep showing you the town? Something like that, he said. Only if you promise not to start the tours in the wrong spot. Deal, Marin replied, grinning. They both stood and began walking toward the beach. The tide was pulling in gently, the water catching the colors of the sky. Ronan slipped off his shoes and let the waves wash over his feet. Marin joined him, both of them standing ankle-deep in the ocean. I was afraid, Ronan said suddenly. Of what? Of starting something with you. Because you're light and I'm still carrying so much dark. Marin looked at him, her gaze soft. Maybe light is exactly what you needed. He reached for her hand. I want to try. With you. She didn't hesitate. Her fingers curled around his. Me too. A week later, Ronan signed the lease for a small space near the old bookstore in Belcove. Marin helped him paint the walls, arrange the shelves, and laugh more than he had in years. Months passed, and the town got used to seeing them together. Marin with her backpack and walking stick, Ronan with his quiet strength and kind eyes. Sometimes he joined her tours, telling guests about the brain and body with the same care she gave to sea life and history. They were a strange pair. One guided through stories, the other through science. But somehow, they fit on a warm spring morning, as seagulls flew overhead and waves rolled in with rhythm. Marin stood beside Ronan at the very spot she had first shown him, the hidden cove no guidebook mentioned. So, she said, are you glad you stayed? Ronan looked around, his smile reaching his eyes. You know what? I don't think I ever really left.